Hello. Each year, the Cleveland Orchestra presents the Martin Luther King Jr. Community Service Award as part of its annual MLK concert in Severance Hall. These service awards honor individuals and organizations for extraordinary service to the community, reflecting the spirit, example, and teachings of Dr. King. This year, we honor several organizations virtually for their extraordinary service to the community during this extraordinary time of COVID-19 and racial reckoning. Our honor row includes only a sample of the hundreds of organizations who've stepped up this year to meet the community's most urgent and basic needs as a result of COVID, to address issues of systemic racism, and to use healing power of the arts to build community. Our honorees are grouped into 4 categories: community leadership, improving education, promoting social justice and racial equity, promoting greater understanding through the arts. Dr. King said, "Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others?" We honor the following organizations for community leadership in serving others during this challenging time: the Cleveland Foundation, for creating the COVID-19 Rapid Response Fund, for quickly assembling 80 corporate, civic, and philanthropic partners and $8.6 million in emergency funding for our community, and for distributing those funds to nearly 160 organizations across Northeast Ohio for food, housing, personal protective equipment, virtual learning, mental health access, and to support grassroots organizations. Eaton Corporation's Chairman and CEO, Craig Arnold, GE Lighting's President and CEO, Bill Lacey, and Squire Patton Boggs' Global Managing Partner, Fred Nance, for rallying the business community at the start of the pandemic to close the digital divide, for providing 16,000 laptops and internet connections to urban, rural, elderly, and handicapped residents in collaboration with PCs for People, and for giving those residents online access to critical services and to the world. Greater Cleveland Partnership, for its work as a convener, advocate, and resources for the region's employers to address systemic racial inequalities which hinder economic growth. GCP's equity and diversity programs train hundreds of professionals, leaders, and volunteers from businesses and community organizations each year. Their goal is to close racial disparities in jobs, income, and wealth by growing businesses owned by people of color and increasing workforce diversity, equity, and inclusion. Education was integral to Dr. King's vision for a more just society. While all school districts faced enormous challenges this year, learning in urban school districts was compounded by a lack of digital access, food and housing insecurity, and more. We are proud to honor the following organizations who, like many others, worked heroically to remove barriers to learning this year. Cleveland Metropolitan School District, CMSD, for its massive effort amidst shifting health guidelines, school schedules, and curriculum plans to provide comprehensive support for learning and basic needs for students, families, and teachers. For working with local foundations, businesses, and organizations to provide critical digital access and to address food and housing insecurity, and for innovative solutions, including the creation of academic learning pods for daily, safe remote learning under adult supervision. The George Gunn Foundation, for its $1 million grant to support digital access needs, laptops, hotspots, high-speed internet, for Cleveland Metropolitan School District students and families who were struggling to learn remotely in the worst connected city in the nation. This gift follows a $14 million gift in 2019 for Say Yes to Education Cleveland and many other generous gifts in support of CMSD schools. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, said Dr. King. We recognize the following organizations for working to address issues of social justice and systemic racism. The Urban League of Greater Cleveland, who along with YWCA of Greater Cleveland, United Way, and others issued a clarion call to action in 2020 regarding the broad and negative consequences of systemic racism and formed a public-private partnership for change. Cleveland City Council, for passing legislation declaring racism a public health crisis, and for assembling a broad coalition of organizations to deeply engage the community and pursue policies and strategies to bring about racial equity in Cleveland. Cuyahoga County, for the efficient distribution of millions of dollars in CARES Act funding to help meet the most urgent COVID needs in our community. Health and safety COVID protocols, personal protective equipment, rent and utility assistance, support for local restaurants, funds to support artists and performing arts venues, and more. The county is also recognized for its current work to address racial inequities in healthcare, expand economic opportunities, ensure equitable quality of life, and pursue criminal justice reform in Cuyahoga County as part of the county's declaration of racism as a public health crisis. Black Lives Matter Cleveland, for organizing rallies and partnering with organizations to combat racism, violence, and the need for police reform and accountability, and drawing attention to these issues through the Mural Project on East 93rd Street, a colorful and hopeful message created by Black artists, and now a community touchstone for expression, reflection, and unity. And last, but certainly not least, we are proud to recognize two organizations who used the power of the creative arts this year to illuminate critical issues, advocate for positive social change, and create greater understanding and acceptance. Karamu House, the oldest African American theater in the United States, for their Juneteenth production entitled Freedom, an artistic and creative response to the murder of George Floyd in 2020. Karamu used its virtual performances of freedom and subsequent panel discussions to educate and activate the community about next steps in eradicating institutional racism. Cleveland Public Theater, for raising consciousness and nurturing compassion through groundbreaking performances and life-changing educational programs. Projects such as Cleveland Act Now and the Y Haven Project, and performances such as Or Does It Explode, an exploration of what it means to be Black, male, and young in the 21st century, use the power of theater to confront critical issues, provide safe space for self-expression, and nurture understanding. So congratulations to our honorees and to the many organizations throughout our community who lead by example, transform lives, and truly embody Dr. King's spirit of service.